What's up, guys? My name is Rose. Today I'm going to be doing a video where I talk about not so much what got me into horror. This is more the story of what made me the strong believer in the paranormal that I am today. I do have a couple of videos up already, but this is going to be the video where I sort of introduce myself and my channel. I know it's silly to do that not as my first video, but whatever, I'm just having fun here. For the story that I'm about to tell, it is entirely up to you how much, if any of it, you want to believe. Hopefully my story is at the very least entertaining, so enjoy. I've considered sharing my experiences before, but something happened a few nights ago that brought all my memories about my childhood paranormal encounters to the surface. I'm a strong believer in the paranormal and always have been, even as a kid. But I'm also a skeptic in the sense that I like to consider every possibility before jumping to conclusions. I wanted to include this point because I want to be clear that everything I'm sharing is the uncensored truth about what I've experienced. Whether I imagined or dreamed any of it is up to interpretation, but these are my memories. When I was in about 5th grade, my family moved from our suburban home to the city. My parents wanted to be in the city, but also remain near nature. It seemed like the perfect opportunity when we toured a home that was 5 minutes from downtown and surrounded by a city park. The small brick home felt like a fairy tale cottage in the forest to my small, Disney-loving heart. I was immediately in love and wanted to move there. My little brother Joe, who was in 1st grade at the time, and I immediately wanted to play in the woods while my parents talked to the current owners. The owners of the home were a very old couple. I later learned from my dad that they had raised their family of 7 in the home. This was surprising because it's a 1-bathroom, 4-bedroom home, and the kitchen and living room are cozy, even for our family of 4. While my parents talked to the old couple, Joe and I explored the woods. We stayed within the vicinity of the house, not letting it out of our sight. I remember for years after that, my parents kept the firm rule that we were not to let the house out of our sight because the park went on for miles, and as kids, we could easily have gotten lost. Joe and I were ecstatic when we discovered the foundation of a second, small, brick building in the woods near our house. In reality, we have found the foundation of a shed of some kind. As kids, we felt like we had discovered a secret abandoned building. He and I played down there for a while. When my parents came out from talking to the old couple that owned the house, they weren't very happy because there was broken glass and bits of rusty scrap metal all over the foundation, and we shouldn't have been playing there. This didn't stop us from sneaking to the foundation for years to come, especially after coming to the conclusion that the house was haunted and that the foundation was part of the place's history. The house was and is perfect for our family. I'm 20 now and in college, and I still live there and love the house despite, or rather including, its unexplainable happenings. It's exactly what we were looking for, and it's nice to live surrounded by so much nature. It can also be a bit spooky when you realize that being so far set back from the road and hidden from everything else, even our neighbors, means that we're also not very protected if anything bad were to happen. I can remember once a man killed his girlfriend and hid from the police in the woods, and we had to lock all our doors and turn off all the lights until he was caught. Back to when we first moved in, my parents let Joe and I choose our rooms. With some siblings, this may have led to a fight, but we actually each found the room that we felt like was perfect for us. His room is a lot bigger, but my room overlooks the forest. I think today we both stand by our choices. I admit that this sounds silly, but I remember feeling a strong connection to my room when I chose it, even beyond the fact that it had a view. I felt like I was supposed to be in that room. I don't know how to explain it without sounding ridiculous. I still like the room, even now, knowing its creepy history. Maybe being the morbid person I am, I almost like it more. As a kid, something really cool that I remember that comes into the story later is that my parents offered to spray paint my closet door with Krylon to make it a chalkboard. They gave me a tub of chalk, and I used to sit and draw on the door. I thought this was really fun at the time, and although it's since been painted to be a regular door, I still think it was a cool idea, and I might respray it at some point. Something that should have been a huge red flag about the house's questionable history was that both my brother and I had locks on our doors, except there was something really weird about the locks that gives me chills now as an adult, although as a kid, I didn't think twice about it. My brother's door locked from the inside like a normal bedroom. My door locked from the outside. I remember my dad making jokes about locking me in my room, and we all laughed, knowing he was kidding. I don't know why this odd detail didn't make me wonder at the time. I literally just thought, that's weird, and moved on. My dad disabled both the locks, mine because there was no logical reason for it, and my brother's because he was too little to be locking his door. After a very short amount of time in that room, I began to feel like I was not alone. Nothing out of the ordinary happened right away. I just had a creepy feeling, like someone was in the room with me. It was especially strong when I was trying to sleep. I felt like someone's eyes were on me, and it made it very hard to sleep. I don't remember exactly when I discovered the tiny wooden door that blended right into the wall, but it couldn't have been long after we moved in. Being the curious kid I was, I opened the door and discovered an attic. It wasn't an attic that you could go into because the floors were rotted away and would cave if you tried to walk on them. It was also dusty and filled with spiderwebs, so I didn't really want to go in. Shortly after discovering the attic, I began to think I heard noises coming from the walls, like someone or something was scuffling around in there. I don't count this as an undeniable paranormal experience because that attic was very dirty and it very much could have been mice or even snakes, as we did find snakes living in our basement more than once. That's one of the things about living in the woods. You're going to get critters. Whether the sounds were critters or not, they creeped me out. My first memory of what I believe was a paranormal experience that can't otherwise be explained was about a year after moving into the house. My parents were having a party. A lot of my friends were there and I was having fun. The last thing on my mind was the creepy feeling that I had that I was sharing my room with an uninvited guest. We had cleared out part of the woods and put in a fire pit near the home. My dad had created a path leading down to the clearing. Everyone was sitting around the fire and hanging out, having a good time. It was night, and this was before phone flashlights were a thing, so the only light we had was from the fire. To walk back to the house, you had to walk past the dark woods. I had to go to the bathroom or something. I don't really remember why I wanted to go back inside. But anyway, I walked back to the house. I had to walk past the woods where I knew the foundation to the shed was to get back to the front door. As I walked past, I glanced down in the woods and saw a dark, shadowy figure. I stopped and stared. It was very dark, so I couldn't make out any details. The figure seemed to notice me and vanished into the shadows. I remember at the time I thought maybe a kid or even an adult was exploring and had discovered the foundation. To be honest, though, this doesn't seem very likely. It was a long time ago, so I could be getting the details wrong, but I don't think anyone was missing from the fire. Even if they were, though, it would make no sense for them to be running around the dark, overgrown woods alone. Say it was someone from the party running around the woods by themselves. Why would they run away into the woods, away from the party, when they saw me? I continued walking, faster now, as I was pretty creeped out by the dark figure. As I said, my room overlooked the forest. That meant that as I came out of the woods and towards the house, I was looking right up at my bedroom window. I'll never forget the sinking feeling in my chest when I saw someone looking back out at me. This is one of the experiences I've had that I truly believe does not have a rational explanation. Looking out at me from my window, which is right above my bed, was a little boy. He had brown hair and a forlorn face. Even in the dark, I could see how sad he looked. I'll never forget that. I ran into the house and to my bedroom. I don't know why I ran towards the creepy, mysterious little boy. I was like the idiot in a horror movie that runs into the haunted house instead of away. This didn't feel like a horror movie to me, though. I wasn't scared of the little boy. He just looked so sad. I had the sense that I wanted to help him, to see if he was okay. Even if that doesn't make any logical sense, it's what I wanted to do. When I ran to the bedroom and turned on the light, of course, no one was there. I looked everywhere in the room, even in the attic. There was no explanation that I could think of then, and I can't think of one now. It wasn't anyone from the party. I saw him very clearly, and I didn't recognize him as someone I knew. There was no one in the house, and no one was in my room. It was a while before anything else like this happened again, but the paranormal experiences didn't stop. There were small things. The feeling that I was not alone in my room continued. Something else started to occur that really freaked me out, and freaks me out more, knowing more about the history of the house, which I'll explain in a bit. I would wake up feeling scared and trapped, and desperate to get out of my room. Sometimes I would just be sitting in my room, reading or drawing or listening to music, and I would start to think about how trapped I felt, even if my door was wide open. One of the creepier experiences that multiple people had multiple times, and that still occurs pretty regularly, is that we would, and do, see someone rushing past the front window. To explain, our front porch is right outside the front door, and there's a big window looking out at the porch. Remember, our house is very set back from everyone else's. No one should be back here without us knowing. The creepy thing about this experience is that so many people, including guests, have described seeing the same thing. They'll look up and sometimes even poke their heads outside because of seeing someone run past the front window and no one will be there. Even my mom, who does not believe in anything paranormal, has admitted to having had this experience, even though she believes it is her imagination. When I was in about 7th grade, my uncle came across hard times and moved in with us. He wanted privacy, so my parents agreed to give him my room. Joe and I were to share a room. There was a room that was bigger than either Joe's room or mine that we had been using as a family room, and it was decided that it made sense to have us share that room. My parents bought Joe and I bunk beds, and we moved into that room. He got the top bunk and I got the bottom bunk. I was okay with this arrangement because the bottom bunk was bigger, and I figured that Joe was littler than me, and therefore sleeping on a top bunk would be more exciting for him. One night, very late at night, I heard Joe getting out of bed. It was dark and I was half asleep, but I saw him climb down the ladder from his bed. I woke up completely when he turned on the kitchen light down the hall, and it was right in my eyes. I heard the water running. He turned off the kitchen light and came running back down the hall. He entered the room and came towards the bed. I couldn't make him out very well in the dark, but I could see that it was a little boy and assumed at the time that it was Joe, obviously. He walked over and stood over my bed, staring at me. I was getting annoyed. "What the heck are you doing? Go back to bed," I snapped. That's when I heard Joe moving in the bed above me. "I am in bed," he grumbled, sounding sleepy. I felt my heart beating fast and looked at the figure standing over me. Except the figure was gone. No one was there. I told Joe about the experience in the morning, and he told me I must have been dreaming. I know I wasn't, though. I was wide awake. I also know it wasn't a dream because Joe does remember me waking him up in the night telling him to go back to bed. Flash forward to when I was in about 8th grade. I found an old Ouija board at a garage sale. I was super excited, being the fan of the paranormal that I was and still am. One night, when I was in high school, maybe freshman or sophomore year, Joe and I had our cousins, Jonah and Ren, over for a sleepover. We were all hanging out in my room, telling spooky stories, and we decided to break out the old Ouija board. We turned off all the lights, lit a few candles, and sat around the board. I started off with the typical question, "Is anyone here with us?" The planchette moved to yes immediately. Of course, we all giggled and accused each other of moving it on purpose. No one would admit to doing it, and we kept asking questions. We asked the supposed spirit what its name was. It spelled out the name Ethan. None of us knew anyone named Ethan. It was a name that really seemed to come out of nowhere. We weren't laughing or goofing around anymore. All of us agreed that it felt like the planchette had really led us to those letters without one person pushing it more than the rest. From then on, anytime something weird would happen or we would hear something odd, we blamed it on Ethan. He became an accepted presence, at least to Joe and I, as well as to some of our friends. My parents didn't really approve of all this, and they were pretty upset that we had used the spirit board. My mom didn't, and still doesn't, believe in the paranormal, but she thought that it was a bad idea to mess with those types of ideas. My dad is very religious, and he thought that the Ouija board would open up a door to the other side. He didn't believe us about Ethan being a little boy, and he was worried about something darker and more sinister being summoned by the board. Years passed before I found out the real history of the house. I was a senior in high school. I was talking about my many childhood paranormal experiences, and my mom told me that she thought I was old enough to finally know the house's real history. I was very surprised, as I had asked her about the house's history many times before, and she had always told me it was pretty basic. The old couple that lived there before us had raised their family there. Before that, she was pretty sure it had been a farm, which explained the foundation for a shed. She said that there was something she had never told me before, though, because she had always believed I was too young. She asked me if I remembered how she and my dad had sprayed the closet door with Krylon, and I said, of course. She explained that they had needed an excuse to take the door and spray it before I noticed that it was covered in pencil writing. She explained that it was a very disturbing and sad poem about being locked in the room for days on end and neglected. Someone had written that on the closet door. She said something she had always kept secret was that one of the old couple's children had passed away. In fact, it was the little boy who had slept in the room that was now my bedroom. She didn't know the details about his passing, and she didn't think it had happened in the room, only that she believed they had kept the child locked in the room for some reason, and the child had written about his isolation as an outlet. It's very sad to think that a little boy was locked away and neglected. I know not everyone will believe me about this, but there's no doubt in my mind that the little boy I saw on 2 occasions and many of the odd sights and sound that I, as well as others, experienced in the house were because of that child. I truly hope that he's happier now as a spirit. I like to think of him as my ghostly roommate. I've never been scared of his presence, and I'm especially more welcoming of him knowing what he went through when he was alive. Flash forward to present day. As I said, I still have the same room. I moved out for a while when I was 18, and now I'm going to the local college and staying with my parents. I still believe that the house, and especially that room, is haunted by the spirit of Ethan. I was laying in bed trying to sleep at around 3 in the morning when I saw 2 quick flashes of light right outside my window. I sat up and looked outside to see nothing. It looked like someone took a flashlight and turned it on and off very fast outside my bedroom window. We live way too far from the street, with way too much forest between our house and the street, for it to have been anything from up there. I've never seen any headlights or anything from our house. The street is just too far away and blocked by too much forest for that to even be a possibility. This odd experience reminded me of the many experiences that I've had in the past. This story didn't even cover half the things I've seen and heard, but it's a collection of the main events that actually come together as a semi-coherent story. I don't believe that I've seen the last of Ethan. I'm sure there are many more things that I have yet to experience in this house. I'm not afraid, though. To me, this isn't a scary house or a scary story, more of a sad one. I feel awful for the things that happened in this house, but welcoming of Ethan and hopeful that he will someday move on to whatever possible afterlife you believe in. So there you have it, guys, the story of my haunted house. Hopefully, whether or not you believed it, you were at least entertained.
It's sort of the story of why I believe in the paranormal so strongly and why I have such a fascination with the other side.
I definitely plan on doing more stories in the future, both possibly my personal paranormal encounters, other people's paranormal encounters.
Thanks so much for watching and have a gay day.